Okay, next item I want to show here is the qualifier. So I want to talk about like this little red can right here in the shot. I'm noticing this red can, and it's what I'm going to do is move my mouse over this window and scroll up here, and I can see that this is very red right there. Actually, I'm going to do Alt F to take a good look at this here, and yeah, that's very red right there. So I want to see how saturated that red is. What we can do here is I'm going to go to the vector scope. I'm going to turn the vector scope here, and we're going to look at this. So you get this spike of red going off, and it's almost reaching what's considered broadcast limit for the red region, and that is that can right there. Alright, so we're going to kind of take care of that right there. And first of all, I want to see if that is the issue, if this is what's bleeding off right here. So what I want to do to this red here is, first of all, I'm going to add another serial node because I'm going to make a mask on this just separately here. I'm going to select this node here and do Alt or Option S, and it makes a new mask, and this one's going to be my mask one here, or what's called the qualifier. I'm going to use my qualifier, got this selected, and I'm going to click and drag across some of this red here and select a bunch of different range of reds. And what I'm going to do is just click here in the red, and notice and now based on that red, it has chosen that red here by hue based on its saturation range and its luminance range in that red area there. And I can click this little selection range plus button here and actually add more shades of red, and it will add more saturation and more luminance based on those additional reds that I'm adding. What I want to do is see what I'm selecting here. And what I've done here, if you look up here really closely, you'll notice it's starting to select a mask here, and it's just selecting the reds on the image. This is what I've qualified to be color corrected on this node. This is called secondary color correction, by the way. So what I'm going to do here is I want to see just the mask that I've selected here. So I'm going to zoom out here, back to my image. I'm just holding my mouse over and scrolling here. And I'm going to hit the shortcut Shift H. Shift H is going to bring up kind of this grayscale mask here. It's going to show anything in this gray is not being affected. Now it is leaving in the color here exactly what it is that I've selected. And now you can notice on my vector scope here, it is just showing just this image here. It's just showing what image is left in here, just this red. And notice that's where my spike of red is going right there, almost up to the red point there where it's going to be way too saturated. So this is quite a bit saturated, or saturated red here. I'm going to hit Alt F and really take a look at that there. But now what I'm going to do is I want to get more shades of this red here. What I can do is come down here on my qualifier and select more of that can here. And I'm just going to correct, I'm going to back off the saturation on the can here without affecting the saturation in the overall image, because this is the most saturated point here. So I'm going to expand you can expand your width of red here into different ranges of reds. And what you've got here, we zoom up here. What we've got here is this hue this is a range in between here. There's a very slim range of red. We can increase that by clicking on this and dragging the width to the right, and it expands the amount of reds that is acceptable within this image here. Eventually, if I move this over far enough, it's probably going to start getting into facial tones and other things. So I'm just going to expand that a little bit. This is your width. This is how wide it is. Your center is where it exists exactly in what color. Look at that dissolve away as I move it. So I'm going to get it centered on red there, keep it there. And softening like falls off the left and right hand side of this width here. And then symmetry will change the symmetry on either side to make it fall off quicker on either side. So you have a lot of control over the amount of hue that you're going to be choosing. Same as on the saturation. Once again, this is your high range here for saturation, and this is your low range. So we're going to increase that and grab as much red as we can, but notice we're going to start choosing reds in other spots, so we got to be careful. I want to just select the can. I'm going to soften off the saturation a little bit on the left and right, soften there, and then luminance here. We're going to mess with the luminance here, and you'll see, and grab as much as that can as I can. Now, by the way, that shortcut was Shift H to choose the mask here in this grayscale sort of mask where it shows in gray that what you're not selecting, and now you can see the image that is going to be corrected. If you want to see an absolute mask here, instead of Shift H, you do Alt Shift H. And Alt Shift H will toggle off of that, and then do it again, Shift Alt H, and it goes to this black and white mask. Everything that's in white is going to be affected on this node. Everything in black will not be affected. Scroll out here so I can see that I'm getting a good part of that can there. I'm going to go down to my blur radius. You can actually clean your matte here. You can clip the black, which is going to kind of eat into the noise out in the black. I don't really need it on this image because that red is so dominant there. And white clip will exaggerate your white mask here. So the black will clean up noise, the clean white will clean up the noise in the white. Your blur radius here, as you grab that and you drag it to the right, notice it softens that mask. I don't want to quite go that far, But I'm going to soften the mask just a little bit, just so it's not so hard edged. Maybe around like 7 on the blur radius there. And that's looking pretty good. So if I hit Shift H, toggles off my black and white mask. Shift H again brings us up where I can really look at the color of this image right here that's going off toward red. And now all I have to do is on this specific node, I'm going to grab my saturation and turn it down and look at it till it is an acceptable inside of an acceptable saturation range. If I drag that all the way down to 0, the saturation is going to be basically black and white. If I increase that though, I'm going to increase that so it's about halfway out, so it's red but not just glowing red. And you can actually do this to sky. You can boost the sky a little bit more, the saturation in the sky, boost the greens and trees, and you can do a lot with secondary color correction. So I'm going to hit Shift H. The can is now not so bright red. I'm going to go back to my node editor here, Alt F to get back here, and this is my mask here. If we want to toggle that mask on and off, I'm going to Shift D will turn off my entire grade to show before and after. It bypasses all your grades. Control D will turn off a specific node that you have selected. So Control D will turn that off. Look at the difference in the red on the can. See, look, that looks so bright, and now it looks fairly normal. So that looks pretty good there. Let's go through one more item while we're on this image here. I want to go through what are called power windows here, or this is another type of mask basically. I'm going to add one more node here. And actually, I want this node to happen before I do any of my color correction. So I'm going to add one before. If you go up under Node, I'm going to double click on this one first of all, right there. I'm going to go up to Nodes. I'm going to go up to Nodes and tell it to add a serial node before. Now Alt Shift adds one after. Shift S or Alt S adds a node after. Shift S adds one before. So I'm going to hit Shift S, adds a node before, and this is going to be the input before anything else is done. Notice this is the original file here, nothing's happened to it yet, and then it changes colors as it moves down. So I'm going to go to this node right here, and I want to use a power window over her face. So I kind of want to emphasize her face and darken everything else in this image. So let's go down. I'm going to choose a circle mask here. You got a square mask, circle mask, and you can actually draw masks as well. And you can actually draw masks as well with a little curve here. You can click on that and actually draw these masks here and draw a Bezier mask around whatever you want to fix. And when you click and finish it up, notice it has cut out that mask right there. Let's hit Shift H and show you. That's what that node is all about right there. It's just correcting that window. But I'm going to get rid of that mask though. I'm going to reset this node, and the way you reset that node is you hit Shift H, or sorry, Shift Home, and it resets it back to the node back to home. Control Home resets the whole thing. Shift Home just resets the node you've selected. And I'm going to do this circle mask. Now with the circle mask here, Alt F to go bigger, I'm going to make this so it kind of highlights her face. This is a feather region right here. Everything inside this inner line will be affected fully by your grading, and it will slowly feather off to this outside grade right here. And this is just a shaping of your mask right here. If you grab these edge nodes, you can make it a little bit more oblong there, and then you can grab one of these outside nodes. Oops, missed it. Outside nodes. Gotta grab that. I'll grab it down here, and you can increase the feather. It gradually feathers off from here to here. I'm going to make this bigger, my mask bigger, because I'm going to emphasize her face and not anything else. I like the brightness on her face, so I'm going to darken everything else out here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and let me show you this. Right now what I can do, watch this, when I grab my offset and turn it down, notice it is darkening her face and feathering it off and nothing else. But I kind of want to have the opposite effect, so I'm just going to go over here and click this inverse mask, and boom, now it's happening outside. And I'm not going to exaggerate that much so much. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. And now we are emphasizing her face, and everything else is a little bit darker. I'm going to increase this because I want to keep the can emphasized as well. Her face and the can is important in my storytelling here. So I'm going to scroll out and grab my mask here and increase that so it's got, oops, that's the rotate, and get that so it's got the can emphasized and her face emphasized. Alt F to go back to normal here, and look at where it's being affected right here. I can hit Shift H and look at that node. Everything is affecting it's darker outside that, and inside is being left alone. Shift H to bring that back. So let's look at this with the node turned on and off. And by the way, if you want to hide these wireframes so that you're still in this node, but notice how it's showing that wireframe there, you can hit Alt H and that temporarily hides the wireframes. Alt H will bring, or Option H on a Mac, will bring those wireframes back. It's still performing the grade, but the wireframes are just invisible now, so now I can really look at this grade. But now I'm going to disable this node here, and the way we do that is Control D, and it turns that grade off, and now I can look at before and after with just that grade turned off and see how I've emphasized her face and nothing else. Notice it got darker out here and her face is all the same, so that looks really good. So this is starting to look pretty dang good actually. Let's play through this and kind of see, go home and play this to see how it's looking. And of course this is a little slow on my system here, but it's still working. And it looks pretty good. Now, at the very beginning, this mask is not on her face. It's down here on the table. If you want that to even track, what I'm going to do is get to the end where her face is in full shot here, right about there. I'm going to bring back my mask so I can see it. Control Alt H, and I'm going to go to this little button right here, this little crosshair. Click on that, and these are your tracking tools. I'm just going to get in basic tracking. Right now I'm going to play this forward to the end of the clip, and watch this. It tracks, it follows her, does a really good job, and it's very fast tracking here. And now I can go back, we can go back to this previous keyframe here, and now I play backwards and it will track backwards as well. I did it from that point because I had the mask exactly where I wanted to, and now as the camera tilts down it should follow her face here and keep that mask locked on the can. Look how good of a job that does even when her face goes off screen. And we've kept that highlight right there, and it looks like a natural part of the lighting, and it is done. So play through it. Let's hit Alt H to hide that, the wireframe. Alt F to go a little larger screen here. Play through it, and here's our grade. So it seems like a lot of work for one clip, but after this it gets quite a bit more simple. Let's show you next how to match shots. Well, first of all, let's save. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my scopes here for a second, and I'm going to hit Alt F to go back so I can see my gallery area here, and we're going to save this grade to our gallery here so we can use this later on. So I'm going to hit, actually I'm going to do one more thing before my output is finished here. I'm going to do one more grade. I'm going to make kind of a blue hue for this entire image here. I'm going to double click on this, Alt S to add one more grade, and I'm just going to grab my gamma and slightly shift it to blue just to kind of add a little bit of a coolish feel to this shot. And I like that. So just barely, and there we go. Hit Control F to go full screen. Shift D to turn it off and on. There's before and after. And actually, one more thing I'm going to do that I'm going to add a little bit more contrast. I'm going to go back to my contrast, my curve, and add a little bit more of a heavy contrasty look to this, just to stylize it a little bit more. There we go. Control F to go full screen. Shift D to turn it on and off, and I'm digging what's going on there. I like it. Okay, a couple more shortcuts here. I want to save this grade. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Alt G. It will save this whole serial node up here, and it's got this entire path attached to this node or to this still up here. So now what I'm going to do is, normally I would go to the next shot here and start grading the other shot. Let me turn that off. I'm going to go to the next shot and start grading the next shot. What I want to do here to match things is I want to match this shot to this shot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit with the gallery image selected. Once I've created a gallery still here, I can go to this little split screen, click on that, and whatever gallery still is brought up here, it's going to do a side-by-side wipe here. And with the side-by-side wipe, you can come up here and hit different controls. You can do a side-by-side. Right now, side to side is turned on. I can grab this and swipe it one way or the other. I can grab this and do up and down if I wish. And you're going to be able to compare these two to see what you need to do to match these. That is a dissolve there, so you see them. And if you click on this back and forth, you're going to see one and the other like this. I'm clicking and dragging. But I'm going to put this on a wipe right now just so we can kind of look at these side by side and look at my colors. Now I can start grading this shot with this one here to compare. So now, and one thing I'm going to start doing here, because these colors are somewhat similar but not exact, I'm going to move my mouse over. I've got this clip selected here. I'm going to move my mouse over this one and hit my middle click, my middle scroll button. I'm going to click it down, and it will add the grade from this shot to this shot. But now what I need to do is I need to get this thing, I need to customize this one here. So I'm going to turn my my comparison image wipe off there, and I'm going to start looking at this and seeing what I need to do. First of all, this mask here might not work. Let me click on the mask. I'm going to hit Alt. I'm going to double click on this node, Alt H to bring my my mask back. Oh, I need to click on my little mask here. There it is right there. And actually, this mask is kind of working. So, but it gets rid of the animation when it brings it from one shot to the next. What I want to do first is I want to blow out this detail outside the windows a little bit more to get this to kind of match. So before I actually have this node hit, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get one more here, squeeze one more in. I'm going to hit Shift S, it adds a node before, and I'm going to just increase the whites, the highlights on this image here, and just get those things to peak a little bit. There we go, and you can see those windows just start to glow there. This window here, I want to emphasize her a little bit more. I want to brighten her up so I can actually, this one is darkening everything outside the window, so this one I'm going to bring her up a little bit. I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit over the whole shot. And there we go, and I'm starting to like that. Let's do our little comparison here. It's looking fairly close. Let's see what it looks like as we play from clip to clip. But this is going to take some tweaking. You can delete nodes, you can start over if you wish, and get these two to match. But the lighting's pretty similar to where this works pretty well. I should be looking at my scopes, by the way. Control Shift W and looking at my waveform. See, my darks are kind of bottoming out here. So I'm going to go to my darks here on this node where I corrected the darks right there on my third one, and I'm going to lift the darks a little bit so I'm not blowing out that detail so much. And now I'm going to bring down those highlights so they're not crushing. There we go. And this looks like it probably needs an overall saturation drop maybe. And let's compare those again. And it looks like it's going to be taking a little tweak. But let's say we get these to where they need to be and they're matching. Let's play from one clip to the next. That's really where the real test is. So play from one clip to the next. Seems like this one has a little bit more saturation than this shot does. So I'm going to go to this and boost up the saturation. So if I get this exactly the way I like it here, and actually this one has a little too much blue in it, I'm actually going to take this last node here and I'm just going to delete that node right there. And now it looks like it's matching a little bit better there. Seems like it needs to be darkened overall a little bit more. I probably boosted that too much. Saturation down. And then once you get that to where you like it, I've got my medium shot here, my full shot here. I'm going to do the same thing, Control Alt G, and make a gallery still of this wider shot. And now my close-up, I'm going to work on the close-up one. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to work on this a little bit until I get this to match. So I'm going to click this gallery still, do a split screen, and now I'm going to start to bring the darks down to close to 0, right there. Take my highlights up on this one. Usually, like I said, you don't bring the highlights up to lose detail, but in this instance I do because I've got that window. And then I fix my exposure. I'm going to look at my parade here, and actually let's look at the histogram. We'll get a better layout here. This one has a higher boost in the reds, so I can actually go to my primary bars, grab the reds in the gamma, drag them down, the greens in the gamma, bring them down a little bit, bring the reds down until I get those kind of matched. There we go. And now I'm going to go to my contrast. Let's add another serial node, Alt S. Go to my contrast, create some contrast here. Let's match our clips, see how that's going there. This one looks a little more bluish, so I'm going to add one more node. You don't have to add a node for everything. Sometimes you can combine them. It's just being able to have a lot of control. So now I will go back to my gamma here and move that over a little bit to blue. There we go. And in the midtones here. Okay, one thing I'm going to do here that I want to show you with the curves here is that you can control red, green, and blue channel individually with your curves instead of on a global level. So with this same node here, I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on my red, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab the mid here and start kind of boosting the reds. Find where that skin tone hits, and look how that's starting to match the skin tone between these two shots there. And that's looking pretty good actually. So I'm going to turn that off, and those are pretty close. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to add a node to right before the beginning here. Shift S to add the node before, and on this one I'm going to do the mask, circle mask, Alt H to bring my mask back that I had hidden, and I'm going to increase the feather on this, increase the size, and I'm going to invert that so it's affecting the outside. There you go. And I'm going to darken the offset there and darken the outside. There we go. So the emphasis is once again on the face. Turn off my scopes, Control Alt G or Command HG or Command Alt Option G on a Mac, and adds this still. So now I've got a still for each one of these major shots. Okay, so once you have a whole bunch of these gallery stills up here, and actually I went back because this one right here at the beginning, one thing I have to mention is this clip at the beginning right here. I altered the red settings, and if you copy and paste those other ones that don't need it, it's going to actually copy and paste the reds. It has those red changes that I've made there, those red raw settings. It'll paste it to these other ones that really don't need those changes. Just that first one had a different ISO. So I went back and redid these gallery stills here, so I wasn't copying and pasting those red settings. Just an important note there. But now watch how easy this gets as we move along now. Now we move to these shots that haven't been graded yet. I moved to this image right here, and this is a close-up. So I move over my close-up grade, and I click, or I middle click, and there we go. This one needs to be altered a little bit, obviously, because it doesn't exactly match the close-up, but it is pretty dang close. So I can click on this first one here. Let's go to my mask. On this I'm going to rotate the mask because I kind of like how everything is dark back here, and I want to concentrate on everything here in the middle. So I'm going to expand my mask, and I'm going to actually use this mask. And on this setting right here, I am going to reverse that, and I'm going to brighten this up here. I'm going to grab my offset and brighten that biscuit up right there. And there we go. So I hit Alt H to hide my wireframe there. Alt F to kind of make this bigger, and look at it, and hit Shift E to look at before and after. Looking nice. So then I move on to the next one, and now look how easy this is. I've got my medium shot graded right there. It's the same as this shot. Middle click on this, and boom, done. Go to the wide shot here, go to my wide gallery still, middle click, and there it goes. You can also copy grades from previous clips as well, or you can just use your media in here. See, I've got this one selected. I can just move over here and do the same thing, middle click, and it copies the grade from here to here. And the rest of this is just simply going through shot by shot, and if they're the same or similar shots, you can just middle click on these, and then you might have to customize a few of them along the way.